What is going on, everybody? I'm super hyped about this tank DPS build because it's a refresh of the Instigator setup, which was one of the first builds, if not the first one, that I put out on this YouTube channel, and it's been due for a refresh, and the Tempest exotic pistol is taking it to a whole other level. Let me show you the build classification, and we'll start talking about all of the pieces, because you got to pay attention for this one. They're not easy to build a proper tank build that can actually put up in legendary. So let's take a look. Alright, like I mentioned, this is a legendary build. Tank builds aren't really that needed in regular content, and even in legendary, full tank builds are also pretty useless, except for like maybe 1 or 2 boss stages. So I highly recommend you go the tank DPS route, but even then, this is a legendary specific setup. This is a tank with DPS, so I've done a lot of hybrids that are tanky and do damage. The other setups, like Brooklyn Beast for example, is more of a DPS build that is tanky. This is looking at the other side of the coin. This is a tank build that does DPS. So the primary purpose here, our minimum bound, is that we gotta be able to fully tank legendary level damage, and this one can do it. And that's why it's very specific how you got to put it together. There's not a lot of options we got here. Now, purpose is to level up the Instigator, which was my old build, and push some more damage in another tanky package with the Tempest pistol. And you'll see the changes that we're bringing to the table now that we've unlocked this fully automatic pistol. Really cool. And the playstyle, of course, is we're face tanking. I have some clips out there, literally just standing in front of 3 chunkies, entire waves. We are good. That's a lot of survivability, so if you like that feeling like you're on COD mode, this is the build for you. Farmability is gonna be medium. It's not too bad. We're changing a couple things off their cores, and the chest is gonna be tough. I don't even have the perfect chest yet for the stuff I'm showing you. So let's get in the game. Alright, y'all. We're in game now. This is the original Instigator setup. Okay, so this is not the build that you just saw. I want to start with this because this was the original template that I used in my really fun, I love this build, the Instigator setup. It was a full tank, and we were using the Liberty, which was the exotic pistol of choice for a tank build. You can see I put quite a bit of expertise on it. This one is giving us a lot of utility that we're not getting with the Tempest, so do keep that in mind. But the Tempest with its full auto is honestly just a lot easier. You don't have to be getting a carpal tunnel with clicking all the time and stuff. So we're going to make some changes. Now, the original setup had Memento as our exotic choice, which is really strong, but the members of the channel voted and said that, hey, let's try to do something different than with Memento this time for the full tank, and so I'm not using it in this next setup. If you guys like the content that I'm putting out and want to be more involved with the builds that I do, take a look at supporting me by becoming a member of the channel. At the Oracle tier, you get access to these polls that I'm talking about that'll let you actually influence the gear I use in my next build videos, so check that out down below. So in terms of the biggest changes we're seeing from the original build to this one, of course, the Tempest Exotic itself, fully automatic. We're not getting basically anything from the talent. This is a very silly talent, completely useless, but the pistol's cool. Really unfortunate they didn't pick a talent that was a little more interesting. This just doesn't make any sense. I can go on a whole rant about this in maybe another video. For the purpose of this, we're going to focus on the fact that it's fully automatic, which is opening up chest for Obliterate. And then, like I mentioned, shout out the supporters of the channel, we're going to not use the Memento, and we're going to go for another exotic. And you'll see that here, but you don't have to use this one. I'm going to talk about this a lot in variations. So when we start getting into the core pieces of what makes a tank build, okay, you need to run Foundry. There's basically 2 ways you can do a tank build, and Foundry's the best way to be fully tanky from all damage. You could go PFE, that's another way to be very tanky, but in Legendary you're fighting a lot of enemies that aren't elites, and well, when you're this tanky with Foundry, it doesn't matter if there's elites or not, right? A lot of clips you'll see from people using PFE builds are like, oh my god, look, I can face tank a chunky or 3 chunkies. And you can because they're elites, but then a purple will beam you in the back of the head and you're dead. This one is an overall tanky package that you don't need to worry about who you're fighting. You're always going to be strong. Foundry is giving us total armor, which doesn't really matter. Total armor is not a very important stat. We're getting armor regen at base. So we're not running Memento, so we're not getting that 3 stack. So 1% armor regen. It's going to be something. 50% shield health helps. That's putting us at almost 15 million. And then makeshift repairs is the key here. Okay, as you take damage to your shield and yourself, both of them heal for 25% of that amount over 10 seconds. And guys, the rate is doubled with the backpack. Both the chest and the backpack are very, very strong for Foundry. They essentially do the same thing. They just increase the rate. The backpack decreases the time interval that you heal over, and the chest increases the amount that you heal. Both are very strong. So Foundry is the key here to be fully tanky. And the other key is the Artificer Hive. So with the Artificer Hive, if you're not running this and you're not doing it properly, like I'm about to show you, you're not going to be tanky. And it's going to be all for nothing. You need to focus on skill repair, okay? If you don't have high skill repair, and I see a lot of builds get put out where they're not running skill tiers, they're not running repair skills, and I know that your skill repair is only going to be like 25%, that's not going to give you the sustainability of your shield that you need to actually play a full tank throughout longer missions, longer gunfights, okay? Skill repair is how much of your shield is going to get refreshed every 10 seconds. So this means almost half of our shield every 10 seconds, and our shield is 15 million health, almost, is going to be getting back every 10 seconds. This is how you have the sustainability. Combined with Foundry doing passive regen while you have it out, this is going to be that huge bump. Honestly, Foundry is more useful to get our armor back up, right, so on our body, whereas the Artificer is actually what's keeping the shield alive. If you don't have the Artificer, even with Foundry, with the chest and the backpack, you're taking too much heat, it's not going to be enough. Getting half of your shield back every 10 seconds is just too good to pass up. And so that's what's going to play into some of the roles we have going on. So Foundry is the key, Artificer for our tankiness. Now let's talk damage. So we're taking up a lot of slots here, right? Running a full gear set, and then we have our skills taken up. We have to factor in the roles, which I'll talk about. But when it comes to damage, D and H, we get one piece that we get to choose for high end, because I'm choosing to run an exotic. We get D and H 20% pistol damage for the one piece. No brainer. There's no other piece that you should take for your high end, for sure. And then, like I mentioned, the fact that the Tempest is fully automatic makes now running Obliterate on the chest actually viable. We can now get damage with this fully auto, stack up, Obliterate. This is a crit setup, so we're going to be leaning into that. And now 20% damage, and we're getting 20% more from Obliterate, and of course we have crits. Like I mentioned, this isn't even the best piece. You ideally want crit chance, crit damage. I don't think you should spec into headshot. You are going to be able to headshot, but in Legendary, you're fighting a lot of like mini tanks and stuff. I would just go pure crit and not have to worry about it. But this is the next best thing. And you can see I don't even have the best one. This is going to be the toughest one to farm for. This one, because you need it to come. Crit chance, crit damage, Obliterate, because we're re-rolling it to a blue. Which you have to. So let's talk about the roles before we get into the exotic piece, because that's going to get into a lot of variations. Alright? The roles need to be this way. Assuming we're running this exotic that comes red, we don't have room to play around with anything else. Okay? Why? You really need the skill tier. The way that skill repair scales, you can see we're also running repair skills on 2 roles. So that could give you some flexibility on farming the chest. But you need 2 roles of repair skills and a skill tier, which is going to, combined with Technician, the free skill tier we get, put us at tier 2, and then with that repair skills, get us to 48%. I really recommend that you're at least at 48%, a skill repair. You could go even higher, change some more roles to repair skills. But you'll see that the way it scales, skill tier versus repair skill, you're not getting a lot of bang for buck with repair skills at lower tiers because they multiply. The same way we talk about multiplicative damage, it's the same thing with the repair skills and the skill tiers. You want to build up your base amount from the skill tiers, and then you're getting more value from the repair skills. You could swap both of these out and then run another skill tier. But of course we want to run blues. So this is the really important thing. A lot of people overlook this when you're building it. You need to have skill tiers and repair skills. You could go all repair skills, but you're going to be taking up a lot of roles to the point that you're actually going to be having a negative effect and losing damage. So a lot of people think like, okay, I'll just run, another red instead of a skill tier and then just brute force it with running more secondary attributes as repair skills, but then you're losing so much crit that your overall DPS is actually going to be lower. I ran the numbers. So this is really important. So we need the skill tier here. We're running repair skills. This can't be changed, right? Because it's an exotic, comes red. And we want our shield to be a tier 6. It has to. And that means that these other 4 pieces have to be blue, which is what ties into this unicorn chest, unfortunately. But you can't change any of the roles the way this is set up. It's super important. Originally, actually, I overlooked it and had another one of these as a red, but then you'll lose tier 6 on your shield. There's no point in not being tier 6 on a tank build. So you need to have these blue and then one skill tier, and I guess that will depend on your exotic. This brings us to the exotic choice here. It's the new one. It's been quite popular because of how much it gives you in terms of damage, and it is the OVERTANK gloves. These are actually really strong, and there's a couple different mentalities. You could hunt the tier 3s, which I do recommend you do, especially when they're putting down healing boxes. You could see that I go after them and do quite a bit of damage. You can dispatch them fairly quickly because of these gloves, but it will help you a lot. You could also ignore it, and then you'll probably be doing pretty good damage because the 30% amplified is just so strong. So the rest of the build is really about being tanky. We're building a tanky package, and then we're trying to fit in as much DPS as possible. That's where, we have DNH, Obliterate, and then I think we're getting the best bang for buck here with OVERTANK. Now when it comes to variations, this is where it gets pretty interesting. This overall setup will work no matter what other exotic you want to run. So you could keep the OVERTANK here. You could run the Exodus gloves if you want to be even tankier, just in case you break your armor. This will be a really good save. I've thought about doing this. You could have it set up with the mask, so swap the foundry pieces around, and then in your mask slot, Coyotes I've tested. You still have the repair skills mod on there, for example. This is quite strong too. The DPS isn't as much as with OVERTANK, depending on how much uptime you have on OVERTANK, but this will also give you a benefit to the team. You're pretty much always going to be in crit damage range or even further. We could actually engage from a little further with this pistol because it has pretty good stability. Then this will benefit your team as well. So it could be a really cool pick. And then Catharsis is another one that makes a lot of sense for this type of tank build. But honestly, from my testing, I don't love it. Both these roles are basically useless. They're not really strong picks. You're getting damage from Vicious Cycle, which is actually pretty nice. You're going to peak at 45% damage, and so you're going to average half of that, which is more making up for the blue. And you could still run a red somewhere else, right? Just rebalance your cores. But honestly, the healing is really not that good. We're healing so much from Foundry anyway, and especially because it's the same sort of mechanism. You have to take damage to proc the healing, and that's taking damage, exactly what's going to already proc the Foundry. This one isn't really a strong pick, and you lose a lot of mobility. The cloud is really small if you've ever used Catharsis, and so you have to stay in the cloud. It's really kind of annoying, and you want to stay mobile because you're constantly repositioning yourself as a tank, which you'll see in my gameplay. So again, shout out to the members that wanted me to open up the exotic options here and not run Memento, because we've got actually a lot of really cool options that I wouldn't have tried before with Memento because it is really, really strong. Of course, Memento is going to be overall stronger at peak once you have all the stacks built up because it's giving us shield health, repair skills, lots of cores, and damage and regen. It's a pretty tough sell to not go with it, but it's honestly very refreshing to not have to worry about kills. In this build, as a tank, you do not need to worry about picking up trophies or getting any kills. All your damage is there pretty much up front. One mag will get you obliterate, and then you can focus on trying to proc overdogs or not. Just keep playing, be tanky, focus on your positioning, and you don't need to worry about building up your damage. You'll have it from the beginning, which is quite refreshing. And so the other thing I wanted to cover is actually the primary and secondary, because you'll see me use at least the primary a lot in gameplay. The Lexington is here. You could run Ranger, you could run Measured. I would recommend those two. You don't need to proc any kills to get the damage from those. And of course, Lexington is the best high-end AR to run. This is if you're ever in weird situations where you need to engage from distance. I'm pretty much never pulling this out unless the situation calls for it. You really want to be, you're a tank, right? You want to be in tank range. But the SMG here, the Purist, was super revelatory for me. Like, oh my god, this fits perfectly into the setup. Because what's happening is when we're rushing in, and you'll see this in the gameplay, I'll put my shield away, I'll sprint in, and when your shield's away, you're getting streamlined. So you're not running it together. All the situations where you would have the pistol out, your shield would be in, you're never putting the ARTFICER down, so you're getting streamlined, and then I'll put a mag or two in, depending on how much aggro I have, and then I'll pop the shield out. And then boom, you lose streamline, but then you're using the pistol anyway. So going in and out of using the SMG into the pistol is how I've gotten into a much better playstyle, and I'm doing more damage. So obviously I would recommend here the perfect streamline on the Purist. The other thing you could run is attack vector with regular streamline would also be a strong pick, but considering we have the named one, I was like, let's just throw it on here. It makes a lot of sense. And you'll actually have better sustain, much better sustain with the Purist if you're doing more than a couple bags versus the attack vector. Now, of course, in terms of our stats with our pistol here, you want to optimize to be just over 50 crit chance, stack the rest into crit damage. Like I said, I'm missing one roll, so I would be at 60. You can balance that as you want, as well as balancing the repair skills as you want. I suggest being at least around 48%. You could go higher, you could go lower. Maybe you go lower and then go more crit, but then you run Exodus. That could be interesting as well, but it's different. You want to focus on your shield health here with the skill repair. Alright, y'all. There it is. That's the full setup that I'm running here with Tempest. We're super tanky. We're getting half of our 15 million shield health back every 10 seconds. You've seen it in Legendary. With the Overdog's gloves is allowing us to really target big damage within this tight, tanky setup. And it works. It works. I love this setup, and I hope you guys do too. Check it out. It's not the hardest to farm, so I hope you guys can put this together and play around with it. I very highly recommend making a build like this if you're interested in the tanky playstyle. PFE is not consistent, and running a full tank is really not necessary. Do some damage and run a build like this. You're going to feel like a god. Until the next gameplay where you're going to see me pull this out again, I'll see you. Enjoy.